The 2025 NFL Draft is less than a month away, and it's time for my Mock Draft 10.0. This mock draft is inspired after Calais Campbell left earlier this week in NFL free agency because the Dolphins have a desperate need at defensive line, and there is no trades in this mock draft. The Dolphins have 10 projected picks right now. We will make 10 selections in this mock draft. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, and make sure you are following me over on Twitter because I am putting out daily Dolphins content, whether it is news on top 30 visits, and when the NFL draft rolls around, we will be having all draft selections Miami makes posted on my Twitter. We currently have 1612 followers. The goal is to get to 1700 relatively soon, so go give me a follow at Nic_Rohloff. All right, I said that this mock draft was inspired after Calais Campbell left in free agency. Well, yeah, that's because the Dolphins' biggest need to this point is defensive line. They only have two starters on that group right now with Zach Sealer and Benito Jones, but Benito Jones is more of a rotational guy anyway. Grant, the defensive lineman from Michigan, will be there at pick number 13, and he is rising up my board in terms of the top group of 3 or 4 guys that I think Miami should be drafting. He has a perfect blend of size, explosiveness. He's a great motor. He was productive for the Wolverines, a large part of that 2023 national championship team, and had a pretty solid final season in 2024 as well. And I mentioned it. Defensive line is just such a huge need. And I hate that the Dolphins have cornered themselves into drafting for need early in the draft, but they need corner, defensive line, and offensive line so badly that it just has to be one of those 3 positions at this pick at number 13. And Mason Graham, who's the top defensive lineman available, won't be there. He will be going in the top 6 or 7 at worst. So Grant, in my opinion, is the second best defensive lineman in this draft. I mentioned earlier, he's explosive. He gets off the line of scrimmage at a very high rate. He has a high motor. I will always just reflect and look back at the play where he was on the D-line. The Penn State RB broke it to the left side, was 30 yards downfield. Grant hawked him down. That's the type of guy that the Dolphins need on this defensive line. And Zach Sealer, being an undersized defensive lineman, a pass-rushing, run-stopping hybrid guy, could be a perfect fit next to Kenneth Grant, who's just a big, wide body that can fill up space, but also get after the quarterback as well. I am beginning to like Kenneth Grant a lot for Miami at pick number 13. All right, moving on with the second pick. We're going to go with a corner here, Benjamin Morrison, the CB from Notre Dame. I mentioned corner being the second biggest need behind defensive line. We're going with that guy here. Morrison, a very intriguing prospect because if you go back to 2023, this dude was absolutely elite for the Fighting Irish. Had a QB rating of targeted of 60.8, a completion percentage under 50%, only allowed 280 yards, ball hawking guy. The issue, though, he is very injury prone. He has hip injuries that only allowed him to play in 6 games this past season for Notre Dame. And that's the major concern with Morrison. Coming into this year, he was a projected first-round lock. But due to his injury history, he's falling and slipping into the mid-second round. And there's a world where he goes in early round 3, but I do think a team will snatch him up in the first 64 picks. I do like Morrison, though. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's a smooth man coverage guy, and he's a physical corner as well, which the Dolphins on this defense need more physicality. To me, he has all the tools and makings of a first-round guy. It's just that injury history that I keep on mentioning that is causing him to go in the mid-second round. There's a lot of intriguing corners in this area, like Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Isaiah Thomas from Florida State. There's some other guys out there like Siobhan Revel from East Carolina as well. Morrison is an intriguing prospect that I really like, and he'll be going in that range with everyone else. It's just all about if the Dolphins feel comfortable about his medicals and if they actually check out when they get their hands on him. So let me know. It is a gamble taking him because of the injury history to the lower body and the hips. It's a gamble, but when he's on the football field, he's a great player. Are you cool on taking the gamble with Benjamin Morrison in the second round? Type Y for yes or type N for no. All right, we'll go to round 3, pick number 98 here, and that is going to be another secondary player, Sebastian Castro, the safety from Iowa. What are the 4 biggest needs for the Dolphins? D-line, CB, safety, and offensive line. Well, we cross off 3 or 4 here in the first 3 rounds. Castro is a very experienced veteran player for an Iowa Hawkeye defense that we know produces a lot of good players. He was part of that secondary last season that had Cooper DeJean. He was there with Riley Moss as well. Castro, not the best athlete, though. That's the difference between him, Riley Moss, and DeJean. Those two, yeah, they're absolute incredible athletes, which is why they went in the top 64. Castro's likely going to be a third round, maybe even a fourth round pick because he doesn't have that explosiveness. His RAS is not good. If you want to be sold on Castro, do not look it up. But he is a productive, experienced player who could fit that room with Ifeatu Melifonwu, Ashton Davis, Patrick Morrison, at least be competitive. He's a good tackler, just isn't as rangy as you probably like as a free safety. All right, moving on to round 4 where the Dolphins have 2 selections. We're finally going to address offensive line with someone that Dolphins fans might be familiar with. That's Jalen Rivers, the offensive lineman who played college ball for the Miami Hurricanes. The reason why I like him and see him as a fit for the Miami Dolphins is because of his versatility. We know GM Chris Grier values that a lot. Rivers, in his collegiate career, played 1,200 snaps at left tackle and 850 snaps at left guard, basically splitting those 2 positions this past year for the Hurricanes. He's not the most dominant offensive lineman. Like, his PFF grades aren't going to flash off the screen, and he's not the best athlete as well, but we know the Dolphins like him because they met with him at the NFL Combine. So when you blend in the fact Miami has already taken an interest in him, the versatility is something that Chris Grier values, I value, and I like, knowing that the Dolphins' biggest need on the O-line is left guard. I can absolutely see Miami targeting the Hurricane offensive linemen in the middle rounds of this NFL draft. All right, with our second, 4th round pick, we're going to do what we did last mock draft and double down at offensive line. This one, a personal favorite, Willie Lampkin, the interior offensive lineman from North Carolina. And we labeled Rivers as an offensive lineman. He could play all spots. Willie Lampkin is that, not that. He is very specific to the interior. Now, if you want to get hyped up on a prospect due to what they were graded out by PFF, Willie Lampkin is your guy, grading out in the mid to high 80s in every single category. Didn't allow a sack the last season for North Carolina. Protected Drake May 2 years ago, was the lead blocker for Amarian Hampton this past season, was only flagged 5 times as well. And I can't quit him. I just can't. He is an undersized offensive lineman. We know that. There is no world where he plays left tackle or right tackle. There might not even be a world where he plays offensive guard in the NFL because his size limitates him that much. But he is a dog. He was able to do it in the ACC. And when you watch his film, it's as good film as you can possibly watch at the college level. And even if you go back to the Senior Bowl in 2025, yeah, he was one of the best offensive linemen there, holding his own against some of the top prospects on the defensive line that this college game has to offer. And I think he is a versatile offensive line in the interior. He can be a backup center to Aaron Brewer. He can be a potential backup guard that rotates between left guard, right guard, or hell, he might even win that starting spot. Yes, he is undersized, but he doesn't let that determine him as a prospect. He is an elite player. I would love to add him in the middle rounds, whether it's in round 3 or with one of those 2 picks in round 4. All right, 5 more picks to get to, but hey, we're doing a mock draft, and some of these prospects will be walking across the stage, maybe wearing Dolphins gear, and it would be this hat right here. You can get curved brim, flat brim, black, cream color, doesn't matter, the icon with the palm tree. Either way, get your Miami Dolphins draft hats today, chatsports.com/Dolphins draft hats. That link will be in the description and comments of today's video. Get them on sale right now so you can wear them when these prospects get their names called. All right, one of 2 fifth-round picks. We're going with Quinn Ewers, the quarterback from Texas, a player that is very divisive among NFL fans out there. And, well, the Dolphins clearly have at least some interest in the Texas quarterback because they had dinner with him. Barry Jackson reported that just a couple days ago, which we also talked about that on a video, breaking down Ewers as a prospect as well. He's a fascinating guy because in 2023, he flashed out of the scene for the Longhorns, took him to the college football playoffs, looked like an NFL guy, got some day 2 buzz if he came out of the draft last season, but made the smart decision to go back to school. Now, the only thing that wasn't good for Ewers is that he didn't improve. His completion percentage took a dip. His turnover rate went up a little bit. Like, he just did not showcase what NFL draft experts and front offices and scouts wanted to see from him from year 1 to year 2. It was a massive disappointment because he has the traits that you'd like to see in an NFL quarterback. He's got a live arm. He's got a good frame. The issue? Well, he's always hurt. He's inaccurate, sloppy footwork. Now, he does run a similar offense with Steve Sarkisian that is run in Miami with Mike McDaniel. A lot of motion, quick RPO, screen game. So the fit is there, which is why I think it makes sense for the Dolphins to take him. There's a lot to like with him as a prospect, a lot to not like. But I do think Miami will think about drafting him in the 5th round if he's available. And as I mentioned just a second ago, we talked about Quinn Ewers meeting with the Dolphins and broke him even more in depth as a prospect. A couple video goes on the channel. So that's why you subscribe, because we'll talk about Dolphins football, all the rumors out there every single day. All right, with our second round 5 pick, we're going to go to the offense once again. Tight end from Georgia Tech, Jackson Hawes. Now, this is a very fun player who I believe Miami could have an interest in due to his ability to block. This guy is an absolute big human being. 6'4", 253, graded out relatively well for Georgia Tech last season as a blocker. But the part I like here is if you take away the statistics, take away the run grades and stuff like that, the RS, it's not the grass. You don't see a lot of green, but you see green where it matters, and it's in the explosion rate. When you have someone at the size of Hawes, 6'4", 250, who grades out very well in his vertical and broad jump, that tells you that he's going to be able to be explosive off the line of scrimmage, quick first step, the ability to also, if they play him in the red zone, to just be a jump ball guy. You have a 6'4" tight end that can jump out the building like Hawes can. Yeah, that's going to be very useful, especially for an offense that struggled to be able to convert in the red zone a season ago. Is he the most productive tight end? No, but I like the traits. I think the fit's there for Miami, who are going to be looking to add a tight end because I don't really like Julian Hill, and Pharaoh Brown's a question mark as well. All right, we have 3 7th-round picks here. First one we're going to have is safety Elijah Clark from Syracuse. Listen, Clark is a borderline day 3 undrafted guy. He's got relatively good size for the position at almost 6'1", 190 pounds. He is a rangy safety, was able to come away with an interception last year for the Orange Bin. This is a dart throw type of dude that you just hope to get in your room. We already took Sebastian Castro earlier in this mock draft. There is not a guarantee Elijah Clark would be able to make this roster because we know Calais Campbell's there, Patrick Morris, Malifonwu, Davis, and we drafted Castro, hypothetically. It's an intriguing idea, but I'd like to get more people in this room for competition. All right, our second round 7 pick out of 3. We're going to go to the running back department. Montrell Johnson Jr., the running back from Florida. And I think this one could be a lot of fun for the Miami Dolphins for a lot of different reasons. One, he's got absolutely burning speed. He did. He ran a 4.41 in his 10-yard split, 20-yard split, all perfect, is 9.63 RAS score at a 5'11", 212 size. So he is a physical back. He's a little bit shorter in stature, but he's got some meat on his bones. He's got a similar build to someone the Dolphins just drafted, or excuse me, signed in free agency, in Alexander Mattison. He's 5'11", 220. Madison's brought in to be that short yardage guy for the Dolphins to complement Jalen Wright and Devon Achane. Montrell Johnson, similar size. He'll obviously add weight as he gets older and more of a professional kind of scheme in the weight training system that the Dolphins have. But you saw the speed, 4.41. This could be an excellent understudy to Alexander Mattison as RB4 this year, and then take over as the short yardage guy. He's got a great blend of speed and physicality. I'm a big fan of Montrell Johnson on day 3. All right, the final pick in this mock draft, we're going to go with a wide receiver, Rock Taylor. What a name, by the way. Wide receiver from Memphis. This is a player that is not the most explosive, but I like his size. Nearly 6'2", 213 pounds, was productive for the Tigers last season in the AAC. The Dolphins have an interesting wide receiver room. We know that. We got Nick Westbrook-Akini this offseason in free agency. Complements Malik Washington, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle really, really well. But the depth behind those top 4 is questionable. You drafted Taj Washington out of USC in the 7th round last year. I'm not a fan of Eric Ezukama. I think it's time to finally cut bait with him. Tarek Black and D. Eskridge aren't the best players either. Why not just bring more competition in this room? Rock Taylor, first team all name in this draft. Good size. Give him a shot. See what can happen. All right, 10 picks were made in this mock draft. Let me know your thoughts. Be honest with me. Grade Roley's mock draft, A, B, C, D, or F. Get down in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on how this went. We drafted a lot of players for need. Didn't have the ability to take best player available in a lot of cases, but let me know your thoughts. And that's kind of my overarching thoughts here as we do get closer and closer to the NFL draft. It's disappointing that the Dolphins cornered themselves into this position because when I was doing this mock draft, there were much better players on the board at 13 than Kenneth Grant. And there was much better players than Benjamin Morrison on the board as well at pick 48. But the truth is, the Dolphins just need defensive line and cornerback help so desperately that it's hard for me to envision one of those two positions not being drafted in the first round at 13. Like, to me, even if Will Campbell somehow slides to Miami at 13, I know the Dolphins need a left guard. I think it would be smart to just take one of the Michigan guys, whether it be Kenneth Grant or Will Johnson. I don't like that they cornered themselves into this spot, but it is what it is. Maybe they can go out and sign some players in free agency, but that's kind of where things stand. All right, you can let me know more thoughts on my mock draft on my Twitter at Nic_Rohloff, but also make sure you're following me because I'll keep you updated throughout this entire draft process. News, rumors, top 30 visits. We'll have you covered over there at Nic_Rohloff.